Hi, Mr. Kerry. Thank you so much for joining me in this podcast episode. Really appreciate it. How are you today?
I'm doing absolutely awesome, man. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm super excited to do interview with you. And yeah, it's been like a journey you had over the last 3, 4 years. COVID came and you hit the rock bottom and you go back self up and yeah, you started the business. So walk me through like what gone about like before you starting your business. Like what you used to do before you starting your business?
It was I've actually started out. I was vice. Hang on just a second. I knew this was going to happen. I always forget to turn this junk off. There we go. So I started my journey actually many years ago. It's kind of funny. I was reading a story yesterday where a guy's talking about he started with a lemonade stand when he was 6.
Mhm.
And when I was 7 years old, I started my little lemonade stand and failed miserably. And my whole family's entrepreneurs. And I went to my mom, and I'll never forget this. I said, "Mom," I said, "nobody's coming out buying my lemonade." She said, "Well, why don't you go to them?" And
Right.
so I started knocking on doors, and people started buying. And then I play. I'm a musician. Matter of fact, I was on the road all weekend playing music, and got in late yesterday. And but so I'm a coat of many colors. I was vice president of a transportation company, and but I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit. I've always delved into things, and I said, you know what? It's all about what I want to do, because you get so wrapped up in the
Yeah.
corporate world, and they throw money at you, and then you realize, is it really worth it? Is it really worth spending 18 hours a day stuck in an office, with somebody else telling you what to do? And then you realize, wait a minute, I'm making them $1 million, $2 million, $3 million a year, and why don't I go do that for myself? And so I walked away from a mid six-figure job and went home and said, "Hey, I'm no longer employed." you
Yeah.
know, you know how that goes. That went over like a lead balloon. And but I really I launched a roofing company with my sons, and very successful. I'm not a contractor, no, absolutely nothing about it. But what I did know about was marketing, and
Right.
what I did know about was technology. And at that time, mobile apps were just kind of coming around. I mean, we were moving from the flip phone to the phones we have today. And so I thought, this would be something really cool to get into. So I had developers come in and they wanted 50, 60, $100,000 to develop what I wanted.
Mm.
I said, that's not going to work. We just didn't have that kind of budget for that. So I sat down and I learned how to develop apps, and I wrote my own app. And so it was really cool. And I realized then that, hey, I'm onto something. And so after I started developing the apps, I said, there's got to be a really something out here that nobody's doing. And at that time, people were coming out with these little WYSIWYG build your mobile business cards online, and
Yeah.
I said, you know what, that's pretty cool. I said, but they look like crap. I said they're cheap. Nobody's going to do it. For one, nobody has time to stop and do that kind of stuff. So I went back and I developed a mobile business card on my computer, and I said, this is the ticket. Why don't we go out and develop custom mobile business cards where we actually go in and take their stuff and put it together and give them a mobile business card? And I sold thousands of them. I mean, it just like it was the apps were coming out. People didn't know what
Yeah.
they really were, and I was able to give them a price. And so everything was going extremely well. And I started doing and delving into different things, went into the uh, started looking at NFC and the beacons and that kind of stuff. And when Google came out and they said, "Okay, let's create this great beacon technology," and like they do so well, when it gets hot, they yank it.
Yeah.
you know. So, but that really opened my mind. Hey, let's start developing marketing plans to go along with mobile apps. and started building that up and really taking off with that and going out doing some local social, and putting the app in there instead of the websites.
Hmm.
And then started finding out, well, people didn't even have a website either still, it's 2020 and nobody's got a website. And so we started developing and putting together entire packages and consulting businesses on what they needed to do to really get out there. And just built up an amazing business. And I'll never forget this. I was thinking about this driving in just a few minutes ago. I was watching the Super Bowl. This was in February of 2020. And they said they found one case of COVID. And I told my friends, I said, this is serious, because they were all kind of laughing about it. Oh, one case of COVID. Why are you so concerned? I said, they wouldn't be talking about this one case
Yeah.
if it wasn't super serious. And they all made fun of me. I was like, you don't know what you're talking about. And sure enough, we know what happened with COVID. I was very heavily invested in the restaurant arena with my marketing campaigns and the
Hmm.
small mom and pop businesses. And we all know how that started just developing. And then they started talking shutdown. And I didn't know what to do. I mean, I'm thinking, every one of my customers depend on this app to drive customers, their local social, to drive customers into their businesses. And I started getting worried. And there again, my friends were surrounding me saying, what are you worried about? This isn't going to happen.
Right.
And I said, it's already happening, you know? And so I had at that time uh, just over 14,000 customers.
Hmm.
And that was paying me a monthly hosting fee and a monthly marketing fee. And I was like, this is fixing to go away. And there again, people around me like, oh, you're crazy. This. And then the shutdown came. And so when the first 30 days, everybody was kind of like, oh, everything's will be fine. We'll be back up and running. And I started seeing the decline coming. People were like, I can't pay this month. I can't
Yeah.
pay this month. I can't. And then next thing you know, the businesses started shutting down. And I'm like, what do I do? I have no clue what to do, because I was so heavily invested
Hmm.
in what I was doing. And really at that time, I wasn't diversifying, stepping into other things. Everything was wrapped around that local social app
Yeah.
business. And so after that, it was like, I've got to figure something out. Well, I realized quickly, like the rest of the world, there was nothing to figure out. Everything was crashing around us.
Mm.
And I sat there and watched it. And then my customers started calling just one by one, then tens and 20s and 30s and hundreds. We have to cut this off. We can't pay
Is
for it
that during the pandemic? During the
during the
COVID?
pandemic.
Yeah.
Yes, during the pandemic. I lost every customer except maybe 10 or 12.
Wow.
And they started doing deliveries on their own. And
Right.
they called me. They said, hey, is there any way you can put some kind of menu in our app that we can use and they can order? We want to stay in business.
Mm.
And so I did that. And of course, then we know that just really exploded around all of us, was the delivery and the
Yeah.
DoorDashes and the Uber Eats and all that just exploded. And but I couldn't sustain off of 10 or 12 customers. So what I did was, a friend of mine called me from Arizona, and he said, I'm going to recommend something to you to keep you afloat and to keep, some kind of bottom in your business. He said, why don't you go Uber? And I said, have you lost your mind? I said, I don't Uber. I said, I don't even know what that is. And he said, well, you go pick up people and take them and they pay you for it.
Mm.
And I said, dude, you realize everything is shut down. He said, I know. He said, but I'm telling you, he said, why don't you go try that? So I called Uber. I'll never forget this as long as I live. I called Uber. I woke up. It was 4:30 in the morning. I called Uber. I said, I want to do this. I want to test this out. I said, I'm a businessman. I said, this is going to be part of my plan to get through COVID. And they said, okay, it'll take 7 to 10 days. I said, no, it won't. I said, I know how your system works. You push a button, you put my information in, it spits it out to you. I said, I need to start this tomorrow.
Right.
And the lady said, I tell you what, she said, if you'll put this code in there, she said, I'll literally have you running tomorrow. So I sent her my information, and by 5:30, I was approved. I went out the next morning, $33. I was like, oh, wow, this was stupid. And then I started thinking to myself, this is new. You've got to have cash flow. I think that's the one thing that people don't realize. If you have cash flow, you can keep anything running.
Yeah.
As long as you stop and think a minute, and let me just, I'll shift tracks right there. As business people, we get so wrapped up in this is what I do that we forget that there are other things to do, that we can balance everything out as we go along and as we rebuild and as we do these things. You have to create cash flow. And so that's what I used Uber for, was a cash flow system. And then I started saying, hey, this is building a little bit every day. Then after a month, everybody got tired of sitting home. So they said, hey, let's call an Uber and they can take us where we want to go. So I was literally running home to home, doing a $250 a day.
Mm-hmm.
There was my cash flow. And so I started thinking about that. I thought, you know what? I need to diversify and figure out what we can do during COVID to make some things happen. So I started calling some of my customers back and I said, hey, let's set up some delivery programs for you. We can't afford it. I said, no, I'm going to do it for free. I'm not going to charge you. I'm so sorry.
No.
Merle. And are you going to edit this?
Oh. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, let me stop him. So, and then, you start thinking about that and you say, okay, let's start putting this together. And of course, the first thing people tell you is, I don't have any money to do this. Don't worry about that. Let's do it. I had cash flow coming in. I wasn't concerned about that. Had money in the bank that was burning pretty rapidly because you still have to keep your business going.
Yeah.
I think that's number two. I think people don't realize, when there's no cash flow, the money you have burns very quickly. I mean, the burn rate is just off the chart because you're trying to keep people employed. And then my accountant's calling me, hey, take out these PPP loans. Let's get you some money. I said, I don't want nobody else. I'm debt free. I don't want anybody else's name on anything I have that I've got to even pay back a nickel, because we're starting to see now how that worked out. And so I started going out, talking to people, bringing business back in very slowly because people are skeptical. Businesses are shutting down. Probably 50% of my customers actually lost their business, small mom and pops. They didn't make it. And so we started putting that program together. And we're still trickling in. People are still afraid with the economy.
Yeah. So what are you doing at the moment though? Like what type of services you're providing to your customers?
You're going to have to excuse. There's a dog outside. Give me 1 second. Answer your question.
Yeah. So what are you actually servicing right now with your clients? Like, is the same model you're doing, or like
exact same model? Went back. What we do is we step people. Technology, everything in people's minds is so expensive. And my model's a little reverse. I charge them a setup fee, a small setup fee. It's nothing extravagant. And then I turn around and we have a monthly hosting, just like it's a website.
Yeah.
So we're able to build them into an app, put them into, on the Apple Store, on the Google Play, and build them out an actual program. And especially right now, QR codes are exploding here.
Yeah.
So we've implemented that into our marketing strategies. And so we're just going out and just showing people, listen, if you're not marketing today, especially in today's economy, everybody's fighting for the same customer. Everybody's trying to get somebody in the door. You've got to create something that gives you a positive return on investment. Throwing out a guy on the side of the street with a sign that they're flipping back and forth, trying to get somebody into that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
It does if you're at AT&T store or something and you got the big floppy thing, flying out front, but you've got to reach out. And so what we've done is we've put together a social package with just Facebook and Instagram. I tell people that TikTok's good if your kids are going to go dance in the room and you want to do something funny and drive people. You start to see a lot of sponsored ads on TikTok, but I try to really push them away from that because that's not their target market. Their target market is the 30-year-old to 50-year-old that's bringing 3 kids into the restaurant, and that's who they're after. And so, but yeah, we literally go out and we put together and say, okay, we're going to advertise on Facebook and we're going to advertise on Instagram, and not always Instagram, depending on what they're selling. And we're going to drive people into there. But from there, instead of driving them to a website, we're going to drive them to download your app. Because as you know, nobody's going to go onto the App Store.
Yeah.
Just find Joe's Restaurant on the corner of 5th and 7th. It's just not going to happen. So what we do is we educate people. People aren't searching for you online in the app stores. Let's drive them in, and then let's use push notifications to tell them, hey, come in today because we've got a 10% discount.
Yeah.
And, just simple, back to the basics marketing, which is, I think, what everybody's got away from, because everybody's selling a $1,000 program saying you've got to do all of these magic things that people aren't going to do. Let's keep it simple. Let's drive them to here. Let's make this happen and bring the customers in. The biggest mistake, and I see this every day. Matter of fact, I have customers tell me, well, a guy came in and said, we can do this in 2 weeks.